Hello everyone. So today I want to discuss this news story from a few days, like a week ago now, where Demi Lovato is re-identifying as a woman, as a she. So she essentially is re-including she and her pronouns in how people are allowed to refer to her, as I am doing now. And officially, she's still also going by they, them pronouns, but just also reintroducing she and her again. So the issue with this is that her whole conception of non-binary, when she described it, it's problematic. It exposes the regressive sexism inherent to trans ideology. She explained on this podcast, where she was talking about re-identifying as she, her, that originally one of the things that started her path to identifying as a they was when she was confronted with a men and women's restroom, and she felt that neither was right, or neither felt right, because she just felt human. That's what she said. That she just felt human. She didn't feel like a man or a woman. But it's like, that's what woman feels like. Woman feels like being human in a female body. And men, I imagine, feels like being a human, but in a male body. Because the sexed body aspect of being is just part of your physical reality, and there's no real way that you can't or wouldn't feel your physical reality. That would be like saying that you feel like you don't have hands when you do. So physically, you can only feel what you literally are, because when I refer to feel, I'm meaning physically. You feel like you have a vagina because you do. If you have a penis, then you would feel like you have a penis because you literally physically do. So there's no way that she didn't feel physically like a female human, or in other words, feel physically like a woman, because she didn't describe having any sort of body-mind disconnect or dysphoria. So physically, she could only feel female, because that's what she literally is. So when she describes not feeling like a woman, i.e. not feeling like a female adult of our species, she could only be talking about psychological feelings. And that's where we get into the problematic territory of rooting womanhood in stereotypes over shared biology. Being a woman is not a specific psychological feeling or set of feelings, nor is it down to feelings at all, really. In a sense, from how believers in trans ideology describe non-binary, almost everyone is non-binary. Almost no one feels right leaning into social masculinity or social femininity 100% of the time. And I say social femininity to distinguish it from what I consider actual femininity, because I think words that are tied to female and male should only refer to what is biologically female and male. I think I've explained this before, but new people all the time. So to me, femininity is breast, femininity is uterus, femininity is even the higher pitched voice tendency, female things that are literally biologically tied to femaleness. And then masculinity is the same, but male. So deep voice, protruding Adam's apple. And so like something that should not to me, or would not to me be considered masculinity, would be like a short haircut. Because anyone can have that. I don't think it's good to tie social aspects of expression or being to those words femininity and masculinity, so that's why I pretty much always will distinguish when I'm talking about things like a short haircut or painted nails or whatever social thing as social femininity. That would be the painting of fingernails or any nails, and social masculinity, which would be like the short haircut, because those things are socially tied to each sex. Yeah, so that's an important distinction. But yeah, that trans ideology tells English speakers, but all people who believe in it, whatever language they speak, that woman and man are words for extreme ends of a spectrum of feelings, is deeply sexist and is nonsensical and doesn't accurately describe the human experience, nor does it accurately describe human biology. People should not be being forced to accept this ideology, this belief system that says that feeling like and wanting to look like Elle Woods from Legally Blonde, or Beyonce, or Lupita Nyong'o, or Lisa from Blackpink, or Aishwarya Rai of Bollywood fame, or Sofia Vergara, or to look like any race of Barbie is the pinnacle or standard of woman, and like any feelings or desires in expression that stray from the more Barbie archetype or stray from your culture's idea of the prettiest woman, whatever that looks like, is less womanly and makes you less of a woman. Like, everyone, especially every educated person, should reject such a sexist belief system, or at least scrutinize and question it. If others believe in it, if others believe in trans ideology, then it should be okay for people to not agree with them and to point out why that belief system is flawed. Because it is just a belief system. It is just an ideology, and it is flawed. It's an ideology that argues that woman and man should be terms for feelings or vibes, as Macy Gray was threatened into regurgitating by sexist, misogynistic extremists, aka TRAs, or really MSAs, as I've been calling them recently. MSA standing for male supremacists or male supremacy advocates, because that's what they are fundamentally most of the time. And like, how horrifying was that, the position that Macy Gray was forced into. And horrifying is not an exaggeration. Being forced to claim to believe in some harmful, sexist, science-denying ideology that you don't actually believe in, to ward off death threats and rape threats, and to be able to keep your job and to earn a living, is horrifying and dystopian. Trans ideology is an illogical and cultish belief system where non-believers are vilified and shunned to the extreme as enemies. But unwarrantedly hostile responses to gender-critical people doesn't change that being a female human is not a social construct and shouldn't and inherently doesn't require specific interests or performance styles to earn a humanizing and human-specific name like girl or woman. This obviously also applies to any and all male people getting to and feeling free to call themselves boys, and men too. But given the greater issue of global misogyny, where women are dehumanized at the drop of a hat for everything from attire and literally just having female bodies to childbearing and being courted by wealthy men, see Meghan Markle and Amber Heard both being dehumanized as uncomplex, conniving, evil, empty, harpy gold diggers for marrying the wealthy men who pursued them, and that's despite both entering their marriages with work ambitions and their own wealth, and Amber specifically leaving her marriage without taking the $35 million that she was legally entitled to, against her lawyer's wishes, mind you. But I want to do a whole video on how the gold digger slur is a misogynistic slur, so I will leave that topic alone for now. But so this practice of stripping female people of a human specific name harms female people just a bit more than it does male people, because notice how it's women and girls getting called things like menstruators and being referred to as birthing bodies, while men and boys, who already have an upper hand here as being subconsciously thought of as the default state of human, aren't being subjected to such dehumanizing indignities as getting called things like ejaculators or prostate havers. Woman, the human-specific English word for female adult humans, should not be officially turned into a word or code word for people who enjoy female-dominated expression forms and stereotypes. In reality, it is not that. People, even now, overwhelmingly assume the correct sex/gender, even for GNC people. Butch and GNC women are 100% women too, because they are female adult humans like every other woman in the world. Woman is simply the term for adult humans of the female sex. Officially, it is still defined this way. Not sure for how much longer, but currently it is. That group that the word woman refers to, that female adult human group, have a whole shared female experience and history and fight and struggle and vulnerability on this planet, as well as clear biological distinctions from males. It is just reasonable for them, and for all groups that share something notable and tangible, to have a name, especially if what they share is part of why they've been subjugated, marginalized, and oppressed, or why they've been free and in power and privileged historically and currently. There are an infinite number of ways that one can feel as a woman, because however you feel psychologically while being an adult female human is a valid womanly feeling, even if it's unsexy. Whether a female human's internal feelings are shy or aggressive or assertive or immature or embarrassed or proud or coy or dominant or boss or sexy or sexless or evil or obnoxious or ugly or sweet or good or bad or neutral or anything else that is humanly possible, her feelings and thoughts and personality are all valid female woman girl feelings valid female, woman, girl thoughts and make a valid female, aka woman or girl's personality. Just like however you feel inside at any given moment as a male, adult, or child is a valid way for men and boys, aka males, to feel. And this is like the basic thing that gender critical people are saying that gets them so vilified and shunned. We get vilified and shunned by faux progressives who seriously and openly have these intensely irrational and hostile reactions to anti-sexism, basically, and to those against defining woman and man using Western cultural stereotypes instead of sex. We get likened to Nazis, people who wanted to mass murder everyone they deem non-white for thinking that female humans are distinct from male humans and that they need their own spaces and categories sometimes, and need separate human-specific names for just their sex, partly because of how one sex has been and continues to be marginalized in the world at the hands, overwhelmingly, of the other sex. Like I knew that misogyny was strong and blinding, and that's how women could be killed after being accused of things like witchcraft. I knew that that's how women and girls could be killed for supposedly shaming their families by being raped and speaking up about it, and those getting reframed as honor killings. I knew that that's how mild female crimes that are questionable to even call crimes, like Meghan Markle touching her pregnant belly too much, or Amber Heard fighting back when her limp-dicked ex got physical instead of cowering, or Jada Pinkett Smith agreeing to an open marriage, or daring not to fake a laugh at a joke at her expense in public can bring out this uniquely intense level of hatred and rage and desire to see these women and any woman tormented in people, that men who do misdeeds and crimes that are actually heinous, like Prince Harry's uncle Andrew raping at least one sex-trafficked teen, or Vladimir Putin, flattening Ukraine and murdering its citizens, including its children, just never really inspire. There have always been male warmongers, male murderers, male rapists, and they almost never bring out quite the same rage intensity in people as annoying and disobedient women do. I know that. I know that that's why there are significantly fewer hate videos about the aforementioned men, like not even 10 a month combined, despite the time frame of their actual crimes, extremely destructive and violent crimes in Putin's case, being in the news, overlapping with the aforementioned women who inspire hundreds, literally hundreds of hate videos a month, with massive audiences who enjoy a good tarring and feathering or witch burning of a disobedient woman. It's the Andrea Dworkin quote, basically, that goes, "The public censure of women, as if we are rabid because we speak without apology about the world in which we live, is a strategy of threat that usually works. Men often react to women's words, speaking and writing, as if they were acts of violence. Sometimes men react to women's words with violence, so we lower our voices. Women whisper, women apologize, women shut up. Women trivialize what we know. Women shrink. Women pull back. Most women have experienced enough dominance from men, control, violence, insult, contempt, that no threat seems empty." That's the reality we live in. So, I know all of this, but I would have expected the academics to be aware of that pattern and bias and tendency in people to disproportionately and illogically and violently vilify women, and conversely sanctify and protect at all costs even vile men. See R. Kelly's treatment for decades, even after he married teenage Aaliyah, and after he was filmed raping and urinating on a 13-year-old girl. But alas, nope. It's like the left was growing hungry to act on these old instincts and impulses of favoring males and dehumanizing and attacking females at the drop of a hat, which the left has grown to be the political side to publicly discourage. So when the opportunity to center male people again and attack disobedient female people was presented in this new way, many of them tripped over themselves running so fast to do it, to join the latest iteration of woman-bashing mobs, and join the crowds of content plebeian male worshippers, happy to worship at the feet of their favorite sex, no matter their wrongdoings or threats or misogyny or violence and perversion patterns or social identity label. That's just one of the ways you know trans women are men. So yeah, I kind of got off topic there, but my point was that man and woman being used as terms to refer to humans who share a physical, biological reality is all that man and woman should ever be doing. That's what we, gender crits, are saying, that woman and man should only refer to a person's state of being female and adult or male and adult. But y'all are saying, no, 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 woman should be a term for people who prefer to perform the gender role stereotypes historically expected of female humans in Western society, and it's all just so frustratingly hypocritical, or maybe self-contradicting, because it's like these sexist concepts of man and woman come from you, but then you also accuse them of being born of quote-unquote white supremacist heteronormative patriarchy, which is like sort of true, but not like yes, there are concepts of ideal men and ideal women that are born of white dominant cultures, but they also have the honest and objective understandings of man and woman too. The ones in the English dictionary that are based on the dimorphic reality of sex. Every culture of every race has this. They have their culture stereotypes for each sex, as well as the factual understanding of males being distinct from females, and each sex having a named category in the language that said culture speaks. The West and white people did not teach or force Asians or Africans or any non-white group to distinguish males from females. Every race distinguished males from females with language, instinctually and on their own. So Westerners simply have both understandings just like everyone else does. They have culture-specific stereotypes for the sexes that we call gender, and then also they have biological categorization purely based on facts of sex. Not mindset, not race, not stereotypes, like we English speakers may call a man who is immature or a bad father not a real man, but we don't mean that literally. We all know that evil men, who we'll call monsters sometimes, are still men. We all know intellectually that women with no maternal instincts or no desire to be mothers are still women. That's actually why they're criticized and attacked in the unique ways that they are when they don't want kids. Every race and every culture has been sexist. Gender crits want to maintain the fact-based, sex-based understandings of man and woman that are universal. gender critics want to challenge and question and even do away with cultural enforcing of unreasonable and unnatural gender stereotypes, roles, and restrictions. Meanwhile, TRA MSAs are the ones reinforcing the quote-unquote white supremacist heteronormative patriarchy. I mean, I say in quotations, but okay, there is truth in that because, well, I don't know that I would call it white supremacist all of the time, but yes, in a white dominant country, the ideal man and woman are likely to have whiteness as part of their idealness. And in an Asian dominant country and culture, the ideal concept of man and woman would likely include Asian features specific to the region. And with black dominant cultures, this favoring of black features can be true, but is admittedly a bit more iffy and unreliable, as it's, undermined at times because of the impact of colorism and European colonization and enslavement of Africa and Africans, and the influence of white idealism and supremacy on the diaspora of black people in the world. But yeah, heteronormative, patriarchal, sure, because in most Western nations the ideal family structure is heteronormative, with the male slash husband slash father slash man, aka the patriarch, at the helm, in charge. But the Western concepts of ideal women and ideal men are the ones that TRA MSAs pretend to disavow, but then turn around and totally reinforce over the universal fact-based understandings of woman and man. Gen crits say that such terms should only refer to the factual realities of sex, species, and age, and should only be what their dictionary definitions are, as a sex basis is the most consistent and most scientific and most coherent basis for those terms, because we know that from culture to culture, stereotypes form for each sex, outside of what's natural or even what's reasonable at times. See feet binding, see shaved legs, see unhealthy emotional repression reframed as mental strength, and that's precisely what we're criticizing. But the crazy thing that's been happening more and more for the past, 7 or 8 years now, is that our type of progressives respond to Western sex stereotypes by saying, no, let's stop these sexist demands and encourage adults, and especially kids, to feel free enough to express any way that they feel, because as a society we were supposed to actually progress and move in the direction where we stopped enforcing unreasonable gender roles and unpacked and criticized the concept of gender when it comes to its ideal man and ideal woman performance demands, hence gender critical. But the crazy half of this is that you, TRA MSAs, are saying no, we should honor the unscientific and more misogynistic and sexist Western stereotypes of a proper valid woman and a proper valid man, and actually take those cultural stereotypes even more seriously than they did by going a step further and saying that those Western stereotypes are so heckin' valid and so sacred and godly, apparently, that even males who fit the Western woman stereotype should lose their man status and be considered the Western concept of woman instead. It's so backwards, and it's the sexist backwards TRA MSAs pushing women like Demi and girls much younger than Demi who wish to rock short haircuts in peace without it being a political statement, and who exist in this incredibly misogynistic culture that already encourages girls to hate themselves and either accept and enjoy having their chests be hypersexualized or cut off their breasts entirely to cope. It's them pushing girls to feel like they might not be girls at all because the TRA-MSA belief system implies that a real girl loves to perform femininity, and a real girl feels socially feminine, and a real girl chases Taylor Swift or Cardi B adjacent beauty/expression and is comfortable being sexually objectified. Because that's what TRA-MSA ideology teaches, that your sex is not enough to be a boy or a girl. The believers in this stuff are like making everyone insecure about and obsessed with figuring out what artificial regressive gender box they fit into. They're the ones making people feel like they're not actually their sex, because man, woman, girl, and boy are very much still the names for each sex. If they don't live up to the very white supremacist heteronormative patriarchy role that TRA-MSAs criticize yet uphold and spread as gospel. It's them, it's TRA-MSAs alienating girls from girlhood and boys from boyhood when they don't check off enough of the stereotypes. So this culturally encouraged alienation is what Demi Lovato's whole identity label insecurity is rooted in. Sam Smith's too, for that matter. His choreographer taught him to sway his hips for the How Do You Sleep at Night music video, which I was obsessed with and watched daily until shortly after its release, when he made a community post on YouTube thanking said choreographer for, to quote from memory, bringing out his inner woman, or something. I remember feeling so upset and disappointed at the socially accepted sexism and unchecked self-hate in that post, and how everyone responding to it was just celebrating it unquestioningly. Sensual moves and being heartbroken by a man, which is basically what the song is about, don't make you not a man. Then Sam started identifying as non-binary around that time, maybe even just before he made that community post. I don't quite remember, but it was all around the same time, and it just teaches young boys and girls that this isn't manly. The way he behaved in the video, the way he behaves IRL, and just in his life and interviews and on social media, that it's not manly, that it's womanly. I mean, he literally, I'm pretty sure he used the word womanly to describe how the choreographer brought that out in him, his womanness or something. It's telling boys that boys don't do this. It's telling men that men don't do this. Women and non-men do this. So clearly I'm not a man because I'm not living up to the man stereotype. That's what he's communicating when he proclaims stuff like that. And it's so backwards. Sharing this backwards AF message to the masses is the problematic part. Because humans are so dangerously suggestible and susceptible to culture and to the influence of those around them and within their circles. A 400% increase in girls not wanting to be considered girls in England isn't coincidental or born of something positive. Certainly, TRA-MSAs should be able to at least acknowledge that not every child who wants to not be viewed as a girl or boy feels that way independently or for good and healthy reasons. Something becoming more socially acceptable doesn't make it good. And it's especially bad for children. Look at how easily adults get influenced into this ideology. Kids naturally are even more vulnerable to sexist influence. Allies to trans-identified people, aka TIPs, acting like they can't comprehend social and peer and cultural influence and pressure, but only when it comes to this specific issue, are so dishonest or stupid and seriously lack critical thinking skills. Feeling like some arbitrary sound created for humans of your sex no longer fits you when your sex has not changed doesn't happen in a vacuum or without cause, and doesn't make sense to even happen at all in someone mentally healthy, healed, and grounded in reality. For a sound created for your sex to no longer feel right means, in a woman like Demi's case, that she's given in to societal sexism in the worst, most extreme way, short of body modifications, and place specific feelings and limited expression modes, and possibly a presumption of being comfortable being objectified onto the term woman, and onto people labeled that term, which she felt disconnected from. But actually, woman was and remains just a term for humans of her sex over a certain age. That's the most logical and freeing definition there could be. Critical thinking assignment. If someone like Demi went to a foreign country where the sexes were socialized to dress and style themselves interchangeably so that neither sex dominated in a particular fashion expression, haircut length, or even makeup utilization, and she learned that the arbitrary sound/word for people born with vaginas in this land was goji, and the sound/word for people born with penises in this foreign land was bogey, do you think that she'd still wish in her head to be called something other than goji? Why or why not? Yeah. Humans of the female sex need a name. It makes absolutely no sense that they wouldn't have even one, especially given the shared oppression they face and still face globally from being born female. It's so unnatural and harmful to not allow a marginalized group who share things so identifiable and universal a name. A human-specific name. Adding men into the woman category does not dismantle the Western concept of ideal woman and doesn't help women at all. It strengthens the concept. Part of the harm is how divided this makes women. Divide and conquer works. Part of the harm is also how distracted this makes feminists. When the arguments shift to infighting over how much males with dysphoria should be centered in feminism, the other side is winning. We are distracted. Men are winning. When women get convinced that even though every other marginalized group has one, female people don't need advocacy or an advocacy movement just for female people, where female needs and liberation are centered, our side is losing. Women and girls, and I'll throw in boys, because children are different breed, different from adult men. We're losing. Actually think about this. Co-signing, recategorizing boys and men who don't act like the West stereotype of manly enough as actually being women and girls or non-men, that strengthens the heteronormative white supremacist patriarchy. Even if right-wingers are too stupid to notice this, and even if unwittingly regressive progressives are too stupid to notice this, recategorizing girls and women who don't act stereotypically womanly or girly enough as actually being men and boys or non-women strengthens white heteronormative patriarchy. It strengthens patriarchy. It strengthens heteronormativity. You solidify these roles when you disqualify people from them based on behaviors, based on unwillingness to conform or disinterest in conforming. Those woman and man stereotypes and burdens and parameters are only strengthened and solidified when you say that not behaving a certain specific way expected of women or men as a female or male respectively is so rule-breaking and wrong for their sex and uncomfortable to process in society that it contradicts their woman or man label and messes with how they're viewed by the sexists of society, so removes them from the human specific label for their sex category, because just being your sex is not enough to be a woman, girl, man, or boy anymore. Now lefties imply and sometimes explicitly say that one has to internally wish to perform in a specific way to be labeled a man or a boy or a woman or a girl. This is why trans ideology is regressive and backwards. It is literally sexism turned into theology. Now girls who aren't conventionally pretty according to Western standards, or don't wish to be pretty and don't chase conventional beauty, are more prone to thinking that their lack of stereotypically girly feelings or Barbie or Jessica Rabbit or Princess Diana looks means that they must not actually be girls, despite the actual scientific definition for the sound/term girl still 1,000,000,000% including them. How is that good? Demi Lovato said that feeling more feminine lately, and she could really only mean socially feminine, is why she wanted to start using she/her pronouns again. But any female person not feeling socially feminine, aka not feeling into Western stereotypes for female humans right now or ever, makes her no less of a female human, so makes her no less of a woman. The lack of academics willing to unpack or even discuss this is scary. Sex is immutable, so being a woman or man is immutable. Gender, when used to refer to the idea of cultural stereotypes for each sex, that is changeable in some ways, because some stereotypes, mostly the non-biological ones, can be changed, but woman and man aren't the things that change, because those are sexes. It's so sexist and so illogical and backwards as hell to actually want the state of being a woman or man to depend on things like behavior and attire. This should be common sense for progressives, but instead they're arguing that dividing humans for sport and prison and bathrooms based on who performs which sex stereotypes makes more sense than division in those spaces being based on sex itself. I don't understand how most progressives, to some degree, don't have this part of the realization in them. Or maybe they do, and they're just too scared to speak up. It's so hard to believe that this many progressives, self-identifying, self-declared progressives, would be so unwilling to explore this, to unpack the bad reasons for people identifying out of their sex category. To just pretend like it's all good and peachy, and anyone who even wants to explore it is evil and akin to a Nazi. This is like, I know cult is such a loaded thing to call a thing, but this is like a cult mentality. What is this? Why are you treating this like a religion? Why are you treating this like it can't have flaws? Like it can't be picked apart at all. Like there can never be any wrong ideas that come out of the trans community or trans beliefs. Like it's just all so perfect, and anything that challenges it could only be evil. The most extreme type of or the most extreme understanding is what you give it. That the people who are opposed or questioning or critical are evil, straight up Nazi. Like, this is not a logical leap in thinking. That, you know, a J.K. Rowling type who is saying, I think female humans need a name. I think female humans need spaces sometimes. There are observed, there are studied, there are well-known patterns of male violence that exist in our species, unfortunately, for the male half. And I think female people need their own spaces sometimes, and that is what the separation they've been experiencing for all these years was primarily about to begin with. That you know, someone could say that, such a decent, overwhelmingly decent person could say that, and so quickly the left were to eat her up and throw her in the garbage. Like she just no grace, no like conversation. It was just immediate, like, she's the devil. And it's like, I just kind of lost my I got a little too comfortable, I guess, with, and sort of relegated that quick to throw women in the trash and quick to call women evil pattern of being a right-wing pattern. It's so not, though. It's so not. Lefties do it too. You know, I get used to the woman bad, man good ideology, the quiet ideology of the right, but that seems to also be what informs the motivations for monstering and vilifying people of the left, is just this itching, burning desire to label woman bad, man good. I mean, dress it up, but you know, the trans-identifying males are men, so those are the good men. And the women who criticize them or question them are the evil women. Not just bad, evil. They want you dead. So, you know, if they want you dead, it's only fair that you want them dead. And that's where it always leads, is, you know, you vilify to this extreme to justify cruel treatment. Like, hey, it was her, us. That's where they go. She wants me dead, so I guess I have to end her before she ends me, even though she's not saying anything to give that impression. And her beliefs are so reasonable. It is so reasonable to want female people to be able to have female exclusive spaces. Like, what planet are you from where it's just wrong, and there's no debate to be had, because it's so wrong to think that male people make female people vulnerable, that female people are vulnerable to male people, that there's a whole history, there's a whole present day of this dynamic, and we just have to, like, shut up and not talk about it anymore. There's just such an obvious problem here. It's obvious, like, because I read an article, and all the, like, prep I did and, like, research, just reading some articles before I made this video. One of them was about why Demi chose to shave her head. And like, that was part of her identifying as non-binary, was the gesture of shaving her head, the act of shaving her head. And she described it as like this thing, this clarity moment of like realizing she didn't love how she had this pop star, this girly pop star image forced on her all her life. And part of that, an identifying marker of that, of the social femininity aspect of that, of being a female pop star and of just being a woman in society, is long hair. Because, like, you know, there are tons of women with short haircuts, there are tons of men with long hair, but, like, overwhelmingly, go outside, women sport the long hair, men overwhelmingly sport the short hair. That's the pattern, and it's something forced on us from, like, birth. Like, every baby boy, or most baby boys, it's like a countdown to his first haircut, while baby girls are like, you're just on a mission to grow out that hair. And that is part of that, is because long hair is like objectively prettifying. It's pretty on either sex, it's pretty, and girls are tasked from birth with chasing pretty. That's part of their socialization, is being pretty, chasing Barbie. And boys, what's more handsome is short hair. It's more, I don't know, sleek, suave, whatever. And so boys chase that, and are tasked with chasing that. And that's role, that's social, that's gender. And so yes, it's something that gets forced on you from a young age, and like, it feels like the logical thing to happen, or like, okay, so the natural thing to happen for everyone at some point is you question it. You question if you want to be on this conveyor belt that you were put on from babyhood. But like, it's like gender critics go in the direction of like, I don't think long hair is a thing that should define womanhood. And yeah, like, long hair shouldn't be a thing that defines womanhood, and short hair shouldn't be a thing that defines manhood. It's silly, and these are, you know, social expectations that we should question and challenge, and just, you know, do away with, if personally, if that's what we feel, and it doesn't, you know, make you less of a woman. We shouldn't you know, force on baby girls, female babies, this chasing of pretty, this chasing of long hair. And that's like, to me, the logical revelation to have. But like, Demi's type of people, like, they start to have the realization that, oh yeah, this long hair thing was forced on me and every other girl for the most part. And but her next step is like, and I don't want that for me, this long hair thing, so I guess that means I'm not a girl after all. And like, it's like, so, you know, so she goes into like weirdly leaning into it, like, yes, long hair is womanly, and because I don't want that for myself, and I see all these other people who don't want that for themselves, calling themselves non-women, that must mean I am also not a woman. And it's just like this, like, this should be such a, like, I don't know the word, it's like, this is such a, like, natural thing for academics. It feels like such a natural thing for academics to discuss. It seems like such a natural thing for academics to be critical and critiquing, and just like, it's such an interesting conversation, and such a, I don't know, there was like this time where the academics I was surrounded by would question this, and it's like all of that just went away, just fell away. It's like now they have fully subscribed to the religion that, no, long hair is a marker of womanhood, and if you're not into it, it's a sign that you're not a woman. Like, what the hell is happening? What the hell has happened? I don't know. It's very depressing, though. And I guess really that's all I wanted to say about this topic. I've said so much, spoken for so long that my throat is dry. It's all just very painful. It's just Demi, my goodness, I wish the best for her, but it's so big, the voice is so loud, the pushing of it is so heavy, and you're vilified if you go against it. So my God, to be in a position of influence or to be in the public eye at all and to be gender critical, you have to fake it. I can't even imagine, or I can only imagine. So I do wish her the best. I wish everyone questioning their gender the best, as long as they're not like evil about it. Unfortunately, a lot of them are. You've seen the killed TERFs people, overwhelmingly male, and it's repackaged misogyny. It's the oldest thing ever, this bloodlust for women who are disobedient, to attack them. I mean, who threatening people with rape? When have women done that? Like, what are you? And you TRA types, you're not, just nothing, no words about the rape threats. That's just all normal to you. That's just, you don't want to unpack that either. Okay. I guess Finn. Hey, so I'm back with a final little interjection here because after I recorded all of that, I decided to actually try to look up that Sam Smith post, that community post he left many years ago. Well, like, now I know specifically, it's like 3 years ago. And I found it. I went digging through his community post, and I found it. And I found the exact wording of it. And I found that I had left a response to it. So that was a little bonus for me, because I'd forgotten about that. I didn't realize I had done that, but clearly I had. And it's, because of the way YouTube is, your comment floats right to the top, so you can see it. So I saw it, and it's like, wow. So, and it's because I articulated feelings then that are pretty identical to how I feel now, and I don't know, it just kind of was interesting to see my sort of indignation at it all, and acknowledging the absurdity and wrongness of it. And I'll actually just read it. So his post, what it actually says, so I got it kind of wrong, but what it actually says is, "Love you, Paris Gobel," or Gobel. You, and I think Paris Gobel is the choreographer for the video How Do You Sleep at Night. And then the second sentence is, "You have set the woman in me free." In my memories, that was, "You have brought out the inner woman in me," or something like that. But quoting it verbatim, it actually says, "You have set the woman in me free," which is conveying a similar message. Ugh. And then it was either, again, this was either posted right before or right after he came out as non-binary, to my disappointment and dismay. And then here's my comment, my response to this, which I will post a screenshot of, from 3 years ago. It says, "Your inner woman." That's interesting. I say "your inner woman" even here. I wonder if he ever made a statement, maybe on Instagram or something, that used the words inner woman, because even responding directly to it, I mentioned inner woman, but I don't know, because I vaguely remember it was a culmination of like events, of announcements. Like I think this came right at the same time, or right after, like next day or day of, evening of, maybe even, where he announced that he was identifying as non-binary. And so maybe I was responding to some other wording, but whatever. So just reading my response at the time. Your inner woman, how very backwards and sexist. Men can move in the sensual and elegant ways you did in your video too, as your video literally proves. And plenty of women don't have a desire to move or express like this at all. Jesus Christ. You people are so unwittingly regressive, and I really loved your video and song too, largely because of how it implicitly told men that form of expression isn't just for women. And then 2 shaking head emojis. I must have done this from my phone originally. I'm reading it off my computer right now, and yeah, it's quite sad. And I not to sound I don't know, maybe arrogant in agreeing with myself, but I agree with myself, especially where I say that this video showed that this form of expression isn't just for women, and then to go and say no, but it is, and then like imply that and imply and state, basically state that these kinds of movements, this kind of expression form, these feelings, they're unmanly and they're womanly. And that, because that was part of it for him too, is like his non-binary idea of himself was that he felt womanly sometimes, not all the time. So this idea that in these moments when he's swaying his hips, those are womanly feelings, is the implication of this post, of his wording about the choreography. And I just don't understand. God, I don't understand how the academics, the people I grew up looking up to, who critiqued and thought through everything in our society and why things are as they are, they're always so aware about racially why things are as they are, stereotypes, like the whole Pygmalion effect thing, where they're so like the brains of the world, were like, because it's such a bad sign when even the brains who are aware of things like the Pygmalion effect, the cause and effect of things, the why behind people doing things, and dissecting it, when that for one specific type of belief system is not happening anymore and is being discouraged, and not just like mildly, like very not quite well, sometimes violently. Yes, actually, like thinking back to the people who, mostly male, in fact 100% of the people I've seen do this are male, they're like waving bats saying, you know, I kill TERFs and stuff. So it's being violently discouraged to question stuff like this, even though living in our world is such a like social experience, and that no one anymore, no academics, or very few, and you have to be very like ready to be ostracized and sacked from your job if you do this, but other than those, and very brave, you have to be very brave. Other than those brave people though, no one in academia is questioning things anymore regarding gender. And like I even saw someone post how for some lecturer in some university, they told their class on the first day, any gender critical positions will get an automatic F. How does that feel natural to anyone? Like all these people, their whole thing. I'm just thinking about all the like liberal, contemplative, deep thinking YouTubers I follow somewhat still, and used to follow, and just can't even bring myself to follow anymore. How they mull over everything, they question, dissect everything, why women behave this way, why, you know, how TV shows shaped us, how pop stars shaped us, how society shaped the pop stars, how misogyny shaped Britney Spears. They question, critique, are thoughtful about everything but this. They don't see potential for harm in or harm being the source of why a person would not be comfortable identifying as their sex, as their quote-unquote gender, and not like wanting to unpack that at all, not being for just this, no longer being intellectually curious and just fully down with the like rhetoric, with the mantras of trans women are women unquestioningly, and when they detransition, it's a fluke. Just treat it as a fluke, because otherwise our religion tells us this is valid, and there's no good reason to question it, and there is no good critique to be made here, and look away from, the naked emperor, tell him he does have clothes. It feels so unnatural. It goes against all of my instincts. I don't understand how it could not go against someone like for Harriet's instincts to not dissect the varied and sometimes, at least sometimes, bad reasons that one might identify out of their sex and not want to be connected to the language for their sex. It's so frustrating. It's like it doesn't feel real. Like how this is what I would expect from right-wingers. I really do think people who are more simple-minded in their thinking are more drawn to that side. Not always, but very often. Like the attraction of right-wing ideologies is like simple-minded assessments of the world and like lack of empathy. Like I feel like the kind of person who like has trouble feeling empathy for non-thems, for like non-Americans, non-white people, non-men, they will more often flock to the right-wing side of any discussion. That will be where they feel most at home, because that, if you're of those mindsets, that tends to be more accommodating for people of those mindsets. And so this is what the simple-minded, and like interestingly, they do come from a more simple way of thinking when it comes to sex. It's like this is like one of the very few times they are just fully fact-based, because all my life arguing with right-wing people, they are almost never coming from just wanting to honor the facts. Like I think I've said this before, that's one of my biggest frustrations with Ben Shapiro, is his like mantra of like facts don't care about your feelings, when overwhelmingly like so many positions that right-wingers tend to hold are feelings-based, not facts-based. They have this one about trans, and where they're coming from is quite different from where left-leaning people who are gender critical are coming from, because right-wing people are not gender critical. They are gender demanding. They are gender enforcing. You are going to be the gender assigned to your sex. That is where assignment does make sense to use, because there is a gender role assigned to sex. It corresponds with sex. If you are this sex when you were born, this sex, not observed, when you are born, this sex, you are assigned a gender role for that sex. And that is a problem. That is what is reasonable and good to debate and discuss and unpack and do away with, at least for individuals. Some people, if that is like, they do, it works. Like they happen to prefer that gender role, and it's the one that happens to align with their sex and expectations from society of that sex, and that's great. But for others, it's not, and they just have no, right-wingers tend to have no room for individuality. That's why they would attack someone like Harry Styles for wearing a dress. Even though I argued back then, this idea that if you wear a dress, you can't fight, you don't have the instinct to protect, like women aren't, like that's part of this is the part of the like fallacious part of gender roles where it's like women are not supposed to be aggressive. Like every other species, the female is super aggressive when protecting their young. Like only with women they've put on women this unnatural idea that you're supposed to be always meek and mild and soft and never aggressive. That's not natural to female humans. That's something that is sexy and nice to men. So they've like forced that behavior onto women, even though it doesn't usually come naturally. Like women like can always be brought into aggression, women and girls, because there's so much. That's just a human response, and that's an instinctual response for most female people when protecting their young, certainly when protecting their loved ones. So like I'm like getting away from it, but so yes, gender roles are a social construct. Those demands that I like, and that's like those are the conversations I was having 6 and 7 years ago about stuff like that, like men saying, oh, it's not attractive when you're too loud and stuff like that is social conditioning. There are individual women who are more meek-mannered. That's just their nature. There are individual men who are more meek-mannered, and overall I understand that maybe men will have a pattern of being naturally more outgoing, more loud. But even that I don't know, because like I know so many outgoing, loud women, and it does seem to be like it's just as likely for a woman to be outgoing, but maybe she'll do it in a more female safe way, while men will be outgoing in a way that's a little more reckless, because they're more down to fight a man, they're more ready to like and even that I don't know, because I'm just thinking I know a lot of mild-mannered men. But see, it's like this thing though that gets put on women, that is like a social demand for them to be meek, for them to be quiet, for them to be obedient. It's that part is the social conditioning that is not just universally innate to women. That is the stuff that should get critiqued. That is the stuff that is connected to all of this, because what happens, it seems, is that it gets internalized into womanhood and manhood by people like Demi and her allies, who just, they internalize this social expectation as innate to femaleness itself. And so if you don't feel that way, if you feel aggressive, if you feel tougher than women are being expected to be, now you've got people saying, well, then I must not be female, I must not be a woman. And they do say both now, because apparently they're co-signing that women are meek, women are supposed to be sweet and submissive, and if you don't feel that urge, then woman must not be the right label for you, even though it literally is, because you are a female adult human, and that's all it's supposed to mean. And it's just how that's such an obvious thing. It's so fucking obvious. Why wouldn't the academics be on top of pointing that out, be the first to point that out? I mean, like, how can intelligent people read things like this quote from this Washington Post article that I was reading, where Demi says, there might be a time where I identify as non-binary and gender non-conforming my entire life. Or maybe there's a period of time when I get older that I identify as a woman. She said, I don't know what that looks like, but for me, in this moment right now, this is how I identify. And I don't understand. I don't understand how you can. She's saying that being gender non-conforming is an alternative to being a woman. That's an alternative identity. She conflated being gender non-conforming, which just means you don't participate in your culture's assignments of gender roles or gender looks or gender expression, for your sex. And she seems to dabble in that, go in and out of that, and which is like human. That's a very human, normal thing, to not want your hair long all the time, to not want to wear makeup all the time or ever, to not want to shave your body hair all the time. That's perfectly human. That is not some other gender. That is not some other state of being, actually. And like, to co-sign that it is, like, I know people, sexist people, would say it is. If you're not doing this, then that is a different gender, because woman gender is supposed to do these things. But we intelligent people are supposed to say, no, that's wrong, that's sexist. People just do what humans do, and you're just a woman as a factoid. That doesn't, none of your desire, none of your level of desire to participate in gender roles takes away or adds to your womanness, because woman is just a sexed state of being. And no one with a mic, I should say, who is a like blue check mark, but by life, is saying this. Well, I mean, not that I know of. Like, all of the like academics who have the mic, who get uncontested spaces to speak, no one's protesting when they go to speak at universities, or when they are rising in the ranks of their field, when they are put on boards. No one's like protesting, really. Those people are not questioning this, and it's I keep repeating myself, but it's scary, and it's stupid. It's stupid how stupid academia has become, how stupid people have become, where they don't question such obvious ideas for potential harm, such obvious wrong ideas, such backwards ideas. Like that, being gender non-conforming removes you from your state of being a woman or a man. As Demi said, how can you see her say that, read her say that, hear her say that, and not, like, you just have no words, you have no response other than good, atta girl, or atta you. Like, it's just become so unreal, and I know, like, part of it maybe is just instinctually, this is now the path of least resistance, to just ignore it, to just pretend like what she said here is fine, to not unpack it, because if you do, you will lose a lot of favor in your community, in the left-wing community. So, yeah, I guess that's all I mean, I could talk about this forever, because it's everywhere. It's even in, as I'm updating this part, because I'm just slow with everything, slow in doing everything, there's been this new thing that just is totally connected to everything I just discussed about Demi, which I started recording this like 2 weeks ago. I know. But like, so since then, something that has happened is this one play company wants to change Joan of Arc, the real historical figure, this woman, Joan of Arc, who did this amazingly brave thing in standing, or leading men into battle, being the leader of an army, of a battalion. She did this gender non-conforming thing, and now these people want to do a play where they reinterpret her as a non-woman, because she did this gender non-conforming thing. And the intellectuals are still like, I see no problems with this. Taking away women's accomplishments and unwomaning them retroactively because they did gender non-conforming behaviors, because they didn't believe, they fought against gender stereotypes because they had a passion in their chest about a thing that at the time was something very male dominated. you going back and saying, oh, she must not have been a woman, you see no problems with this? Like, this is exactly what we're talking about. And you keep saying it's this huge gaslight. It's not happening. It's not, what you're saying is not happening. Oh, we're doing it, but it's not happening. And like turning around like, no, we're not taking womanhood from people. You literally are, though. You literally are. So that is its own video, though. And I wish I was more prompt with these things, but life is busy. So thank you for listening. Like, comment, share, subscribe, all that stuff if you care to, and see you in the next video.